Hey folks, Mike Tango Whiskey coming at you with a kind of a part 4 to my Making Prepper Friends video series. I was thinking about, so what videos did I make? I made a part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1 was how to speed up the process for deciding who you can kind of fit into your circle. And then I think I gave a 3-part thing on how to vet them to see if they belong in your, what we're calling the areola of trust. My viewers are calling it that. And then finally, the 3 C's, which are how to cultivate and grow those relationships, like once you decide somebody belongs in that inner circle. I wanted to introduce a concept here because I think, you know, I always want to make that process as fast as possible, and I talked a little bit about that to save time and energy and effort, and I'm all about efficiency, right? I'm lazy. But I also don't want to give the impression that making trusting and loyal relationships is easy, because it's not. So I wanted to illustrate that by telling a story. I've had 2 men come to me in my military career and tell me that, well, let me pause. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'll tell you a story. I'm going to change this guy's name for, you know, privacy's sake, but I was a master sergeant, so I was the superintendent of a flight, mechanic flight in the Air Force, and I had a staff sergeant that worked for me. We became pretty fast friends. I used to run the PT program, so I would force the whole flight to do these terrible workouts. I mean, just really terrible workouts. There was one that I called a kid again, and it was cartwheels and somersaults, like cartwheels down and somersaults back for 10 rounds. And 4 people threw up in 2 minutes. It was the worst decision I ever made as a leader. I immediately regretted it. I almost threw up. So anyway, I ran the PT program for this flight, and he was one of the troops in my stead. Now he was actually almost as old as I was. He joined a little bit late. I did know some things about him. He was a giant of a man. He was tall. He was like 6'4". The first time my son saw him, he goes, "Dad, he's much taller than you." It's like, "Yeah, thanks, son. I see that." And he, great guy, like a gentle giant, just kind of quiet, funny. You know, he was an interesting guy, but he didn't really show it until you got to know him. But he was one of my best PT participants. So people complained and they whined and they groaned and they moaned, and he was a big dude. But he appreciated the workouts. He put a lot of effort into them. He was very sweaty. He always sweat very hard. And he, one time during one of the workouts, he came to me and he goes, "Hey, are my teeth supposed to hurt during this workout?" And I go, "Yeah, that's normal." I had never heard of that. It was, I don't know what I was doing. I was like putting these people, I was doing a social experiment, a physical experiment on these people without really consent. So, but anyway, me and him became kind of close, and he asked me to start training him in my off time. He asked if he could work out with me. Not really training him. I wasn't a trainer. But he said, "Hey, do you mind if I join you for your workouts in the mornings?" Because I used to go in the mornings maybe 3-4 times a week. You know, just standard body split stuff, push-pull, legs, you know, triceps, biceps, all that kind of stuff. And I was in pretty good shape back then, much better shape than I am now. So we started working out together, and we would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sometimes 4 days a week if we could, in the morning for about an hour to an hour and a half each session. So I would do a set, he would spot me, he would do a set, I would spot him, so this back and forth. We were workout partners. And most of the time it was just working out. Like, we just made chit chat, just small talk. We didn't really talk about serious stuff. I also knew that at the time he had just gone through a pretty painful divorce. So his wife had left him, and she had taken his daughter with her. So I knew he was going through it, but we never talked about that. We just talked about weights, we talked about weather, we talked about the flight, you know, we talked smack about people in the flight. which I shouldn't have been doing as a leader, but whatever. He, so we just made small talk, and we worked out 3 days a week for what I would say was maybe 9 months, 8, 9 months. And after about 9 months of working out, he came to me one day in my office and he said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Sure." And he closed the door and he came in and he said, "I have been having thoughts of harming myself." Now, for those of you that don't know, in the military, that's the way we say we're gonna off ourselves, right? Like that's the verbiage that the military uses, like self-harm, harm yourself. Now, now at that point, this was the second time that I had somebody express that to me. The first time was early in my career, and I kind of talked him through it, and I didn't report it to the authority. He's still alive. Both of them are still, they didn't go through with it, but so this time, but no matter how many times it happens, you're never really prepared for somebody to tell you that, and you're caught off guard. Now, in the military, you get training for this. Like, they train you on how to speak to people and how to get them to resources, right? How to, because you're not a counselor, you're not a professional. You need to get this person to the right resources, to the right people, to the right help, to get them the help that they need. So, one of the first things you do is you ask them, "Hey, do you have access to, weapons and those kind of things? Do you mind if I come and get those weapons from you? Do you mind if I, there's all kinds of, there's like these steps you have to go through when somebody says that to you." So we went through the whole process, and we had many, many conversations after that. He was depressed because his wife had left him. She'd taken his daughter. He was devastated. He was lonely. And what surprised me, he made it through it. He came through. We still talk. Great dude. I love the guy. What I took away from that, I remember thinking to myself, why did it take him so long? We had spent so much time together, so much bro time, doing a common interest thing. Like, why didn't you tell me this 6 months ago? I could have got you help then. And I remember I never went to him and asked him that, because it's his to tell. That's his story. That's his private thing. That's not my thing. How do I get to dictate to him, "You should have told me sooner"? Like, that's not my, I don't get to do that. And I remember thinking about it for a long time, and I remember doing the math. And when I did the math, it was over 100 hours that me and him had spent together, working out. And I remember thinking that maybe that there is something to the amount of time it takes for somebody to trust, for somebody to open up, for somebody, especially men, I can only speak for men, to be vulnerable around other men. The reason I tell this story is in relation to, this is a prepper channel, right? And we're talking about making prepper friends. It's not quick. It is not easy. If the place you are trying to get to is trust and loyalty, you better be willing and able to invest the amount of time that it's going to take to get there. Now, I gave you a shortcut in my first video. I think that's effective. But man, once you get to the serious relationship phase, you better be willing to invest that time. I'm calling it the 100-hour rule. I think it takes 100 hours that you have to serve and dedicate to somebody else before you can reasonably expect them to trust, open up, to be transparent, to be vulnerable. 100 hours. And I've applied that same math to other places. Like the team that I'm on at work right now, the team that I have right now, we're really tight. And I went back and looked at about how long that it took for us to get comfortable with each other. It was about 100 hours. With this gentleman, it was the same. And I've applied that same concept. Now, it's obviously not a spiritual law. It's not like a physics law where it just happens exactly at 100. But it doesn't happen at 5 hours. It's not going to happen at 10 hours, right? It has to be, it's a significant investment of time and energy and focus and intention. And if you're not willing to invest in people like that, if you're not willing to add value to them for 100 hours and expect nothing in return, you have no right to expect them to trust you. You have no right to expect them to be courageous for you or expect them to be loyal to you. They're waiting. I don't know if it's 100 hours. That's my rule. I think that's a rule. I think it's like it's like Dunbar's number of 150 people. You can only have a reasonable relationship, a serious relationship with 150 people. I think this is one of Dunbar's numbers that he didn't really talk about. I think you have to invest 100 hours in somebody before you can expect them to trust and to be loyal and to step up for you and all those things. All the things that we're talking about when we talk about the areola of trust, right? That inner circle. Yeah, maybe I should write a book about it. I think it's a real thing. I wish there was some more data on it. I'm just one guy, but I've seen it repeat. I've seen that pattern repeat probably 3 or 4 times in my life and in all of my leadership training and all that stuff. I think it's about that long. So if you think you're going to do a couple barbecues with somebody and they're going to be inside your inner circle and you're going to know who they are and they're going to trust you, think again, buddy. You better be ready. So what is 100 hours? 100 hours, 3 times a week, 3 hours a week, 12 hours a month. So 7 months, 7 or 8 months, 3 times a week. Training, working out, barbecues, watching sports, who knows, right? Quality time. I don't believe in quality time. Like with my kids, I don't believe in quality time. I think quality time is a farce. People who don't spend enough time with their kids believe in quality time. I think it's quantity time. Because only when you spend enough time around somebody do those doors open up. If it's just small talk and chit chat and 5 minutes at a time, you'll never get there. That's my theory. Anyway, I'm going to call this part 4 to my making prepper friends, because I know all of you suck at making friends. You're like me and you don't have any. So I'm going to call this part 4. And I hope this helped. And I hope it sobers you up a little bit as to what the requirement will be. This is why you shouldn't have 40 people in your circle. There can't be 40 people in your circle because you don't have enough time to do that, right? This is why there should only be single digits in your circle, because you can only afford to give 5 people 100 hours a year or whatever, whatever that math works out to. Somebody else do the math for me. But anyway, it is way past my bedtime and I am supposed to be in bed. So this is Mike Tango Whiskey and I'm all clear.